Welcome to the Higher Ed Demand Gen podcast, helping higher education marketing leaders share knowledge about learning, strategies, and tactics that are relevant today. See what you can learn today by listening to one of our episodes.
Welcome to the Higher Ed Demand Gen podcast hosted by Concept 3D. If you like our content, please follow and subscribe to us on Spotify, Apple, and Google. My name is Shiro, and I will be your host today. And I'm really thrilled to talk about something that this show is actually named after, which is creating demand. And specifically, we're going to be talking about creating demand for professional school programs. And for that, I'm very thrilled to have Erin Keane Scott join us today. She is the Senior Director of Marketing at the University of Chicago, Harris School of Public Policy. Erin, welcome to the show. And can you also tell us a little bit about what you love about higher ed?
Yes, thanks, Shiro. I'm so happy to be here. What I love about working in higher ed is that you get to learn, and you're learning from the best of the best. I'm a super curious person, and have loved being able to dive deep into many different subject matters and have access to lots of great minds. Love the life of the mind. It's wonderful to be a higher ed marketer.
That's fantastic. Yeah, always be learning, right?
Yes.
Okay. Can you also tell us a little bit about your background and your current role really briefly?
Sure. So I started my career off as a journalist and transitioned into working in higher ed marketing when I started at Carnegie Mellon University School of Drama in 2014. Did a brief stint in public radio and then returned to higher ed to work at the Harris School of Public Policy. And my role at Harris as Senior Director of Marketing is much to do with brand stewardship as well as demand generation. So thinking about how we can attract students and build awareness among students starting as early as their early undergrad years, to start considering some of the degree programs as an opportunity for them to continue their career in public policy.
That's fantastic. I didn't know about the radio. What were you doing when you were working in radio for a little bit?
I was the Director of Marketing and Communications and Strategic Branding. I had a pretty intense title for two public radio stations in Pittsburgh, WESA and WYEP, Pittsburgh Community Broadcasting. So it was an interesting challenge to take on, particularly as I started there in 2019. And 2020 was such an intense news year. And the place where people listened to the radio most was a place where people weren't spending a lot of time. That is the car. So interesting challenges around building audience and brand strategy during that time, but fascinating. I learned a lot.
Yeah, I've never heard of. So we don't have to go too deep into this, but was your goal as a marketer to get more listeners listening to the radio?
Yes, and engaging with the station, both of the stations. So it was tricky. It was a tricky pivot, and bringing along a medium that is so deeply rooted in history into more digital listening and building more digital listening habits and digital engagement was an interesting challenge, both internally and working with our listeners.
Got it. And I'm throwing you a bit of a curveball, but is there anything you learned from that role that you translated back into higher ed in terms of like marketing tactics or strategies?
Absolutely. I mean, I think that's where I kind of got started in the idea of demand generation, which was creating demand for content. Outside of that, I'm in my car and my habit is to turn to 91.3 every morning and listen to the radio to how do we make appointment viewing for YouTube shows with our DJs? How do we find different programming and engaging ways to get people to meet up with us online? How do we get folks to use their smart speakers as radios? All of these were kind of the kind of demand generation questions I was thinking about and building towards while I was working there, particularly in that context of a pandemic lockdown.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I love it when people bring principles from other facets of marketing and bring them into higher ed, because I think you can learn from a lot of other industries, and so that's fantastic. Can you
Absolutely.
can you also tell me a little bit about Harris School of Public Policy? I know prior to our call, I didn't know anything about this professional school, so can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. So, Harris Public Policy offers a slate of professional degrees for folks who are interested in a deeper examination of the policies that undergird our daily life and interested in being the policy leaders who create um, solid principles, data informed principles for how we move around in the world. So it can be from everything from public finance to education policy to environmental policy to technology and society.
Thank you.
Of course.
Yeah, that was a new one for me, for sure. I'm wondering, and you just joined this professional school somewhat recently in terms of higher ed. Can you tell me something interesting you've learned as an example from being in this role about public policy?
Sure. So I think the level of granularity in public policy is really, really interesting. It's so multidisciplinary. One thing that has been really exciting for me over the last 2 years is getting an opportunity to launch the Harris Policy Innovation Challenge, which is like a Shark Tank style competition for students at Harris Public Policy to engage with a pressing local issue. So last year we had students tackle the problem of Chicago's underfunded pension crisis. There's like a $30 billion deficit on public pensions. So, how can we address that through various other revenue generating mechanisms? And it was so interesting to learn the different ideas that the students brought to the table, including one of the most popular, or I guess maybe not popular, one of the newsiest solutions was the idea of putting a toll on Lakeshore Drive in Chicago. It got the city all abuzz. So it was fun to watch the media move around that and fun to see students engaging in a local policy issue. And I learned a lot more about public finance than I ever knew before.
Wow, that's amazing. Did students, or did you have like a board who voted on what policy they liked the most? Like, how did that work?
Yeah, it was fantastic. We brought in a panel of experts from around the city and country in order to evaluate three of the finalist proposals. They all pitched, and then the experts judged, kind of went back to decide who they felt the winner was. And the winner actually won $10,000 and had an opportunity to pitch their plan to a bunch of City of Chicago officials and stakeholders at a follow on event. It was pretty cool.
Oh, that sounds really like both fun and actually very helpful for the local community, which is amazing.
Yeah,
Um,
it's fascinating.
what's the marketing lens on that? So, like, you got a lot of publicity locally for the Harris School of Public Policy. We're able to capture like content with that too. Like, tell me your marketing strategy behind this.
Yeah, absolutely. So last year was the inaugural year. So it was a lot of explaining this to the students. But one of Harris's um, most valuable aspects is that we're a school who's known for and really fulfills the promise for applied learning opportunities. So this is a huge tool in our toolkit for unpacking what exactly does applied learning look like at Harris. So, it's a recruitment tool, it's a demand generation tool, and then a citywide and community engagement tool. And the media strategy around it was really exciting to see too, like the pickup around town. All of the finalists got to publish their pitches in Crane's Chicago Business, which is a pretty major local publication. And then it got a lot of pickup across local media too. So some reputation building in there, some earned media opportunities, and really then capitalizing on that as a content opportunity. So we did video. We, used all of those earned media hits as much as we could. And those have all come in really handy as we look to market this year's challenge, which is all about creating a thriving downtown Chicago for the next 20 years.
That's amazing. Are you going to shift the topic or the theme every year to keep it themes fresh? Okay.
Yeah, exactly. That's the idea, is that hopefully we bring enough really viable solutions to bear for the city, so that experts and members of the local government keep coming back for more.
Now, this is such a good idea. I think I've talked to a few business schools who have and haven't been on the podcast, but I know as a professional school, like MBA programming enrollment's been down a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And, one thing that a lot of these schools I've talked to, one thing they preach is that, this program, this degree is going to help you get, it's going to help you move up a step in society. But like something like this put together with that program would be so good, because it would actually practice what you preach in terms of, giving you a real life example of what you could be doing after you graduate. And so, I really like this, and I love that the same kind of concept could be applied to other professional schools and programs.
Yeah, I think so. It's been an exciting evolution to watch it go from an idea to a real successful initiative.
Well, congratulations. I'm excited for the next year's version.
Thanks.
You did mention demand a few times just now. And I know on our previous call, you said you consider yourself a demand gen and a brand marketer.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah, sure. So I think my role at the Harris School of Public Policy and the role of my team is really to think about how we build the biggest, widest top of a funnel that we possibly can. So how do we build interest in the school and be stewards for the school's reputation? So we might think about less obvious KPIs. We're really looking at the engagement piece of things, because we want people engaging with the Harris brand in order that they might, 1 to 5 years from now consider a degree from Harris. But even if they're not a person who is in the typical demographic to matriculate at Harris, we want to be a resource for folks who are in the policymaking industry, such that they come to rely on our brand enough to refer young potential graduate students to our programs, people who are interested in getting a part-time degree to our programs. That's sort of the gist of it. It's like really building brand eminence, reputation, and looking for ways to bring folks into the fold.
Got it. Are there specific channels or tactics that have been working well for you in the last 2 years?
Yes, absolutely. We are really excited about a slate of policy topic-based newsletters that we've launched over the last year. We have 3 that we've launched, and those are growing. So it's sort of a content marketing play, but something that's really tactical that I'm excited about from this demand generation standpoint, but might be practical for other higher ed marketers, is we actually ported one of our topic-based newsletters, Public Money Policy, from our email client into the LinkedIn newsletter function. And the number of subscribers we got in the first week blew our email subscription campaign like out of the water. So just organically, it was really impressive to see. So that's something I'm looking forward to experimenting more with in terms of building visibility and creating demand.
And how does that work? I've pondered the idea of starting the newsletter in LinkedIn. Like, do you just start the newsletter, and like, how do you like promote it outside of promoting it to your own emails?
Sure. So that's sort of the beautiful thing, is that it um, promote LinkedIn automatically sends this newsletter, the promotion for
Mm-hmm.
this newsletter, to the emails of everyone in your following to opt
Got
in.
it.
So whereas we might not have the email of all 20,000 of our LinkedIn followers, LinkedIn certainly has their emails. So that distribution channel was huge in reaching um, a bunch of people in their inboxes and then in their social media feeds as well.
Yeah, you're getting me excited because I want to try this channel a little bit more now. I know I've
Yeah,
heard like mixed results, but it's good to hear. Like obviously, like not everything works for everyone, and so strong part of marketing is testing everything once or twice to see if it works for you.
exactly. I love the experimenting side of things, and kind of that curiosity piece, like staying up on what's new and what's available in our various distribution channels. Particularly for those of us, working in higher ed, we don't always have huge budgets. So this is a really low barrier way to reach a bunch of people. TBD on the engagement side of things with that newsletter, but I'm very curious to see how it progresses. This was just like a this week win for us, but it's been fun to see
Oh
the
wow, okay.
audience.
So it's
Yeah, the
really new.
audience demographics, and just watch how people are engaging and subscribing to the newsletter.
Got it. LinkedIn newsletter. Okay. And in terms of the actual concept of your three newsletters that you have, do you write about you know, at the national level content that relates to this? Like you have a team of writers, you work with your content team, and you get subscribers based on your pieces that you write?
Yes, exactly. So we do sort of a twofold approach to building the audience base there. So the newsletters aggregate scholarship and earned media mentions from our faculty members, our research centers and labs over the course of in the intervals between editions. So we publish 2 of our newsletters bi-weekly and 1 every week. And they cover topics spanning from really, really local, based in Chicago, to national. And the beautiful thing about being situated in a big city like Chicago is that often the things that we're experiencing have um, lessons in them for folks across the country and world.
It, I'm glad we're talking about this because I think I was trying to. I don't talk about email newsletters a lot, especially when I talk to undergraduate marketers or central comms marketers, because I don't think it's as strong as a play. But when you reach that graduate level, like I think this is actually a really strong content play, and I'm glad we're talking about this because people are looking for that next step in education, and you know they probably care a little bit less about brand and campus life and these things, right? They're trying to look at outcomes of which they might get, and what better way to display that than research or studies coming out of the school program itself, right?
Exactly. That's really
Mm.
it. And then, I mean, the opportunity to run um, lookalike marketing campaigns and retargeting campaigns with existing audiences really abound, to solidify that we are thought leaders in that space and that folks should come to us for good information about topics like municipal finance. We have a great newsletter called Not Another Politics newsletter that's really just about the deep dive into political science. We have like preschool to PhD education policy experts working and uh, teaching at University of Chicago Harris School of Public Policy. So it's great to be able to push out that content that's relevant to folks um, across those career paths. Really,
Has
yeah.
has your political science topic or newsletter caught, like, is it getting a lot more subscribers considering this is a election year, or is it the inverse?
It's a pretty niche podcast. You have to be
Okay.
so wonky to be into it.
Okay.
So our audience numbers in that space are pretty level. I'll be curious over the next several weeks to see how things shift and change. But one of the hosts of that podcast, Professor William Howell, is a pretty well-known political scientist and oft called upon by major news outlets. So I imagine that we'll be starting to drum up some more eyes as things get closer and closer. But you really got to be ready to nerd out about political science. It is totally devoid of any like opinions,
What it,
actual party-based politics, and is really about election policy, democracy, and they talk a lot about the number of folks in our country who are actually moderates and how we can get more moderate candidates into our electoral system.
mhm. What is the podcast called? I just want to give a quick shout out here,
Sure, it's not another
so I can
politics
look it up after.
podcast.
Not another politics podcast. Got it.
Yep, and the newsletter is called Not Another Politics Newsletter.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Another thing we talked about previously is the entryway into your graduate program or professional school is you're trying to widen the gap a little bit, or widen the entry point. So I know you mentioned, you're trying to recruit more finance folks, graduate alternative for education. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? Because I think that's a really creative way to create new entry points into a graduate program.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you for asking. I think that's exactly it, is trying to discover ways we can reach a sophomore in college who's studying education but might be interested in more policy-based objectives. That person who's saying, I want to go do Teach for America after school, and then next, go get my MPP so that I can influence ed policy outcomes. Same thing, like a finance person who might be saying, like, I want to be an analyst, but I am really interested in public policy. How do I shift gears from this MBA track to an MPP? So finding students who are not yet at the consideration phase of graduate school, period, in order to introduce this as a viable next step for them. Does that make
Yeah.
sense? And
No,
I think,
it really does.
yeah, we're thinking of tackling this in a number of different ways. It's a pretty new strategic initiative. Certainly, these newsletters are a piece of the puzzle, but also, how do we get experiences in front of these students? What connections do our faculty members have with faculty around the country, and how can we get them to be presenting master classes virtually or in person with students in undergrad education classes, undergrad finance classes, to share their expertise and talk about this possibility of a master's in public policy degree. Does that make sense?
No, it completely does. And I think I mentioned I was an environmental science major back when I was in college. And I took a few policy classes, which helped me kind of understanding a little bit more, but very, not in any detail. But I'd imagine, like, if you were like an environmental science or policy oriented finance person and you wanted to make change versus work for like private equity, like that's a great route you could potentially go to, right?
Yeah.
Because a lot of public policy does rely on financials. So it kind of like it was a light bulb moment you told me the other week about this.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I even think to bring it really close to home, like my partner is a PhD material scientist and graduated from his PhD program to go work at the Science and Technology Policy Institute in Washington, D.C. So he immediately parlayed that expertise into policy work. And I'm sure if there had been some elements of policy analysis or or policy creation in his degree, he would have felt even more confident heading into that space. Or he might have been a person who we would catch early in his undergrad engineering degree who had said, oh, actually, that's a path that I think I would like to take more than going down this research track.
Oh, this is fantastic. And lastly, the last topic I wanted to cover is around school rankings. So I know, especially with like engineering schools, I've talked about this a few times. School rankings still are an old concept, but still extremely important to the brand's awareness as well as recruitment and enrollment. Like, what are your thoughts on that? How does that tie with the public policy space as well?
I think this is an excellent question and a really ripe topic for digging into, because I suspect that I'm not alone in higher ed marketing, in that like our faculty are so disinterested in these ratings. They don't appreciate the methodology. They want us to ignore them. And we have audience research that shows us that this is a really important way for folks to understand who we are, what we do, and it's an important piece of their decision to where to attend is based on these rankings. So it's not something we can just ignore, regardless of scientific methodology for creating the ranking system. So Harris, the way we think about rankings is as a bonus to our additional content. The public policy school rankings get really granular into different topic areas. And I think part of our larger sort of demand generation strategy for really creating these vehicles like these email newsletters for thought leadership, it help us in those rankings and then help us be able to use where we are ranked strategically in recruitment marketing.
Okay, that makes sense now. I was wondering what you meant by a content play for your ranking, but you're tying in how you have all these different channels that you've created and how that actually influences your ranking on your perception to the market. So, no, this is really good. Well, awesome. I know we're just at about time, Erin. I would love to learn where people, our listeners, can reach you, learn more about what you're doing, also what Harris School Public Policy is doing as well.
Sure. So you can find me on LinkedIn, Erin Keane Scott. That's Keane, Keane, like the band. And I am not a super social media uh, posting person in my private life. So you can see the interesting work that we're doing on Harris's channels at Harris Policy.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. This was a new topic. I loved all the tactical like examples you provided us, and I think they're going to be really helpful for a professional school. So thank you again so much
Yeah, of
for
course.
joining
Thank you,
today.
Shiro. I appreciate it.
Yep. All right.
All right.
Thanks,
Take
everyone.
care. Bye.